Imagine flying just meters apart,
Yeah.
hundreds of kilometers an hour,
Yeah.
in a plane almost as old as your grandparents.
Whoa.
That's the daily reality for Canada's iconic aerial ambassadors. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into the world of the snowbirds.
Let's do it.
Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. We are really grateful you've tuned in.
We really are.
And hey, if you're enjoying what you hear, please take a second to like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, it genuinely helps the channel grow.
It really does. Helps us keep bringing you more fascinating content, lets us explore these kinds of intriguing topics, just like today's subject.
Absolutely.
So our mission today, unpack the incredible legacy of the Canadian Forces Snowbirds. We'll dive into the operational details behind those breathtaking shows
Mm-hmm.
and explore the surprising realities of keeping these decades-old jets in the air.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
We've pulled from a pretty fascinating stack of sources for this: official government schedules, historical timelines of incidents, detailed aircraft specs, all to give you the clearest picture possible.
It's a truly unique story. Really encapsulates not just amazing flying skills, but also, a big piece of Canadian military heritage and their public face. They're a national symbol, really.
They certainly are. So maybe to kick us off,
Yeah.
what's the official story? Who are the Snowbirds, and what role do they really play for Canada beyond the cool aerobatics?
Okay, so officially, they're the 431 Air Demonstration Squadron.
Right.
And their core purpose, according to the sources, is basically to demonstrate the skill, professionalism, and teamwork of Canadian Forces personnel.
So PR and recruiting, essentially.
Exactly, a vital public relations and recruiting role. They're aerial ambassadors for the Canadian Armed Forces, both here and sometimes abroad. And what's quite significant historically is they were the first Canadian air demo team officially designated as a squadron.
Ah, okay. So that gave them permanence.
Right, cemented their place.
That makes a lot of sense. It's definitely more than just a show then. It's like a living display of Canadian military skill. And speaking of roots, where do they call home? And how do they get that name, Snowbirds?
Home base is 15 Wing Moose Jaw out in Saskatchewan, a place with a long history of flight training.
Okay.
And the name Snowbirds. That's actually a really nice community story. It wasn't some, high-level military decision.
Oh, really?
No, it was chosen in a contest at a local elementary school back in '71.
They get out. That's great.
Yeah. The kids were apparently inspired by the plane's white and red paint scheme. Felt it symbolized grace, beauty, Canada.
That's such a cool detail. A
Yeah.
real grassroots name for a national icon.
Mm-hmm.
And they definitely carry on a serious tradition, right? Following teams like the Siskins, Blue Devils.
Golden Hawks, Golden Centenaires.
Yeah.
Yeah, a rich history.
And didn't the Golden Centenaires also fly the Tutor jet? The same one the Snowbirds use now.
They did back in 1967 for Canada's centennial. So that really laid some groundwork. Used the same airframe, ties them even deeper into Canadian aviation history.
Right. Now, we see the jets, but there's a whole team behind them. How big is this operation?
It's bigger than you might think. The whole squadron is about 80 Canadian Forces people, full-time.
80. Wow.
Yeah, but the actual show team that travels during the season, that's only 24 personnel, and out of those 24, only 11 are pilots.
Only 11 pilots in the air.
That's right. It really highlights the massive support crew needed on the ground, logistics, maintenance. It's way beyond just the folks in the cockpits.
That's a huge undertaking. And the heart of it all, the plane itself. The Canadair CT-114 Tutor, model CL-41.
The workhorse.
An aging workhorse, Canadian-built, designed by Canadair. Maiden flight was way back in January 1960.
Yeah, 1960. Think about that.
Canada ordered 190 of them initially in '61. And they were the RCAF's main jet trainer from the early 60s right up until 2000.
Just incredible service life.
It really is.
And it was designed for training. That's key. It needed to be super reliable, pretty economical to operate. And importantly, it's intentionally stable aerodynamically.
Makes sense for teaching new pilots.
Exactly. Specs-wise, it's about 32 feet long, wingspan just over 36 feet. Single Orenda J85 engine gives about 2,650 pounds of thrust.
Which sounds like a lot, but maybe not for a modern jet.
Well, it gets them up to about 486 miles per hour max speed, so decent for its era and role.
Okay, so designed as a trainer, but obviously adapted for aerobatics. What did they have to change?
Well, that's where the clever stuff comes in. They added a smoke system, obviously.
Right, the signature trails.
Yeah. Originally used red dye, but get this, it was corrosive, so they had to stop using the red dye.
Huh. Never would have thought of that.
Me neither. And of course, the iconic paint job. But crucially, the engines are tuned for better responsiveness down low, which you absolutely need for precision flying close to the ground.
Makes sense.
And I found this fascinating. Some tutors were even reconfigured with extra controls, so they could be flown from either cockpit based on what the Snowbirds learned they needed. Shows how the plane evolved with the team.
That's really adapting.
Yeah.
Now, here's something I find really interesting logistics-wise. Most demo teams have a big cargo plane following them around with spares, right?
Usually, yeah, like a C-130 or something.
But not the Snowbirds. How do they manage?
It's actually pretty ingenious. They pack smaller spares and materials right into the nose or wing roots of their own jets.
Seriously? In the tutors themselves?
Yep. Makes them kind of self-sufficient for minor stuff. For the bigger, heavier equipment, they use an 18-wheeler truck, a mobile support unit that follows them on the ground.
Wow. And how do they keep these old planes flying so many shows? I mean, the airframes must have a lot of hours.
That's another clever bit. They cycle the display aircraft with the standard training tutors back at Moose Jaw.
Oh, so they swap them out?
Exactly. It spreads the flight hours across the whole fleet, keeps the hours relatively low on any one specific display jet. Smart management of an aging fleet, really, making the most of what they've got.
That's genuinely remarkable resourcefulness, especially given the age. And the Tutor wasn't just used in Canada, right? Were there other versions?
That's right. There was a variant, the CL-41G. The Malaysians bought it, called it the Tebuan, means wasp.
Okay.
And they actually used it as a ground attack aircraft until 1986.
A ground attack plane from a trainer design.
Quite a shift, isn't it? Shows the versatility. There is also an experimental one, the CL-41R. They stuck the nose of an F-104 starfighter on it.
What for?
The idea was an electronic systems trainer. It never went into production, but still pretty interesting. Shows Canadian Aerospace was capable of producing this quite adaptable design.
It really does. Okay, let's shift to the flying itself, that dazzling precision. When and where can people actually see them do their thing?
All right, show season is basically May to October. They average around 60 air shows at about 40 different locations across North America each year.
Busy schedule.
Very. And they only pop back to Moose Jaw maybe 4 times during that whole 6-month season for maintenance. Big props to the ground crews on the road.
Definitely. Any highlights for, say, 2025?
Yeah, looking ahead, they've got dates penciled in like Montreal, June 15th, Canada Day in Ottawa, July 1st, Duluth, Minnesota, July 5-6, Abbotsford, BC, August 8-10.
Okay.
Toronto, end of August, McMinnville, Oregon, late September, San Francisco in October. But, you know, always check the official schedule because some might just be flypasts, not the full aerobatic show.
Good tip. Now, the flying, that close formation stuff, it just looks impossibly close. How close are they? And how fast?
It really takes nerves of steel.
Yeah.
Speeds range from about 100 knots, that's like 185 kilometers, up to 320 knots, so almost 600 kilometers.
Okay.
And the closeness. In many formations, they're just 1.2 to 1.8 meters apart.
Meters. That's like 4 to 6 feet.
Exactly. Barely wingtip to canopy sometimes. And when the 2 solo pilots do those head-on passes, they aim for about 10 meters, 33 feet apart, but their closing speed is immense, nearly the speed of sound combined.
Wow. The precision required is just mind-boggling.
Immense skill, immense trust.
And these aren't just random cool moves, right? They design new routines. Is there an approval process?
Oh, yeah. Very rigorous. They design new stuff each season, but it has to be approved by Canadian Forces, Transport Canada, and even the FAA in the U.S. for safety.
Makes sense.
And they have different shows, too high, low, flat, depending on the cloud cover, the weather. Very adaptable. Plus, you have the classics passed down. The Canada burst, the heart formation, the downward bomb burst, those solo crosses.
And the big finale, the 9 abreast.
That signature 9-jet formation, yeah. It's a real blend of, like, constant innovation, but also honoring tradition.
Okay, quick question. I always wonder about the smoke. What is that white stuff?
Yeah, common question. It's basically diesel fuel.
Diesel.
Yeah, injected right into the hot engine exhaust. It vaporizes instantly, creates that thick white plume. Totally harmless, dissipates way before it reaches the ground, but very effective visually.
Clever. And I read they were one of the first teams to use music.
They were. Pioneers in that. Syncing music to the show, sometimes even with live commentary from the pilots piped through the sound system, really adds another layer to the experience, connects with the crowd.
Cool. Operationally, how long do pilots stay with the team? And what happens if someone's sick?
Okay, so pilots typically do a max of 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, and they rotate about a third of the team each year. So you always have experienced folks training the newcomers,
Hmm.
ensures continuity, passes down the knowledge.
Smart system.
Now, here's an interesting detail about their structure. They carry spare planes, sure. But if the boss, the team lead, is sick, the whole show is canceled for the day.
Really, no backup lead.
Nope. No spare team lead ready to step in for that specific role on the spot. If another pilot is out, they can adjust the formation, maybe fly with fewer jets. But the boss is irreplaceable for leading that performance.
That really highlights how critical that one position is, which I guess leads us into the tougher side of this,
Okay.
the inherent risks. This kind of flying, especially in older planes, it's dangerous.
It absolutely is, and we have to talk about it. What's, well, not fascinating, but deeply sobering, is that risk is always present, no matter the skill level. Since 1972, 9 members have died while on duty with the Snowbirds.
9.
8 pilots and 1 passenger, and another pilot was killed in a ground vehicle accident after an air show. Each one is a tragedy, a stark reminder of the thin margins they operate within.
It really is. We remember recent ones like the terrible crash in Kamloops in May 2020. Killed Captain Jennifer Casey, the public affairs officer. A bird strike, wasn't it?
Yes, a bird strike during takeoff. And back in 2008, Captain Brian Mitchell and Sergeant Charles Senecal died near Moose Jaw during a non-exhibition flight. These aren't just stats, they're real people, huge losses.
And those incidents always bring up the question of the aircraft themselves, right? The Tutors are old.
Very old. Developed in the 50s, first flew in 1960. They're way past their original intended service life. And concerns have been flagged since, gosh, at least 2003.
About what specifically?
Things like metal fatigue, parts failing, the ejection seats being outdated, the avionics being ancient compared to modern standards.
Right.
And there's also the criticism, fair or not, that flying a 1960s trainer doesn't really project the image of a cutting-edge modern Air Force anymore, which clashes a bit with the whole ambassador role.
That's a tricky balance. Heritage versus representing current capability.
Exactly. It shows this incredible dedication, maybe even stubbornness, to keep this national icon flying, even with major challenges from the old tech.
And despite recommendations, years ago, to replace them, they keep extending the Tutor's life.
New avionics recently, right? Aiming for 2030.
That's the plan, which would mean nearly 70 years from when they were first bought. 70 years for an airframe design in active aerobatic use. It's pretty wild.
Just incredible. So what is the path forward then? What's the government saying? What are the options?
It's definitely complex, balancing tradition, the budget, safety. The government says it's committed to the Snowbirds and the mission.
The defense minister has voiced concerns about the Tutors aging out, safety issues, told the RCAAF to start looking for a replacement.
So they are looking.
They were told to start.
Yeah.
But the big Snowbird aircraft replacement project, that got shelved. The cost was estimated at like $500 million to $1.5 billion.
Whoa. Okay, that's serious money.
Big money. So instead, they're doing this Tutor Life Extension program with L3 Harris.
The one aiming for 2030.
Right. Focusing on modernized avionics, upgrading escape systems, better parachutes, harnesses, looking at the canopy design, trying to keep them safely flying until 2030.
But what happens after 2030?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? The RCAF is actively looking at future capabilities, potential replacements to make sure the Snowbirds can continue past then. But it's a constant juggling act, legacy versus the future.
It really is. Which brings us to the bigger picture, I suppose. What does this all mean for us? For you listening, thinking about this. In an era of stealth fighters and drones, rapid tech advances, and maybe more awareness of risk, how does a team like the Snowbirds fit in? How might their role evolve?
That's a great question. What does keeping these old planes flying say about how much we value tradition, national pride, that tangible public connection to the military?
Yeah, are they primarily a nostalgic link? Or do they need to reflect the absolute cutting edge?
And if they do need to modernize the aircraft eventually, what kind of plane best represents their mission? Balancing cost, safety, and still delivering that wow factor, that demonstration of pure skill.
It is a lot to think about, isn't it? We've touched on their enduring appeal, the pilot's incredible skill, and this really complex challenge of maintaining such a storied yet aging fleet.
A true Canadian icon facing modern questions.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We really hope you've picked up some surprising facts and maybe gained an even deeper appreciation for these amazing aerial ambassadors.
Hope you enjoyed it.
And if you did enjoy this journey into the world of the Canadian Snowbirds, please do us a favor, like, share, and subscribe. It helps support the show and keeps these fascinating insights coming.
We appreciate it.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.